upside down, there's no upside down like in a regular aircraft. You have your own gravitational field right inside. So if you're flying upside down, to you, you're right side up.
Have you ever wondered how UFOs work? How engineers and scientists manage to reverse engineer them, build functional machines, and even learn to fly them? The answers come from Bill Uhouse, an American war pilot, World War II veteran and engineer who worked on top-secret projects at Base 51. His confession is very interesting because it lines up with what other engineers, pilots, and scientists had already gone public with. What sets Bill Uhouse apart are his claims that he frequently collaborated with an alien known as J. Rod. This extraterrestrial scientist, jokingly nicknamed the Ambassador by the base staff, helped scientists and engineers overcome difficulties in adapting their technology. Today, I'm not going to talk about how people got their hands on this technology or how this collaboration came about after World War II. Although you'll hear about it in the interview, I'll make a separate video or more about it someday. Today, you'll hear about the way these people overcame the technical barriers to building an alien flying object, how they learned to fly in them, and how they communicated with this alien named J. Rod. By the way, the picture you're looking at is a drawing by Bill Uhouse depicting what this being looked like. Bill Uhouse is just one of the hundreds of witnesses who have been brought together by Stephen Greer, whom you've probably heard about. Although Greer is often criticized, for valid reasons which I'll discuss someday, he still deserves credit for the effort he put into gathering all these people and their testimonies in one place. What is also very interesting in the interview is that Bill Uhouse mentions Edward Teller, a Hungarian-American physicist and the father of the hydrogen bomb who often worked at Base 51. There is a lot of information, and you can judge for yourself from the interview, which I divided into 2 parts to keep the video a reasonable length. I hope to publish the second part of the story soon, so sit back and listen to what this man recorded in 2000 before his unfortunate passing in 2009.
4 years working with the Air Force as a civilian, doing experimental testing on aircraft. Since my Marine Corps days, I was a pilot in the service and a fighter pilot, and fought in World War II after the latter part of World War II and the Korean War conflict. I was at the and went up as far as the Yalu River. I didn't start working on flight simulators until about, well, the year was 1954 in September. And, well, a little later than that, let me go back a little bit. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I took a job with the Air Force at Wright-Patterson, doing experimental flight testing on various different modifications and tech orders that they had incorporated into aircraft, various different aircraft. F-89, back then the B-47, F-102, and those aircraft. While I was at Wright-Patterson, of course, I was approached by an individual that, and I'm not going to mention his name, to determine if I wanted to work in an area on just new creative things, okay? And apparently that was the flying disc simulator. What they had done, they had selected several of us, and they reassigned me to a Link Aviation, which was a simulator manufacturer. At that time, they were building what they call the C-11B and F-102 simulator, B-47 simulator, and so forth. And they wanted us to get the experience before we actually started work on the flying disc simulator, which I spent 30-some years working on.
So they had flying disc simulators. To your knowledge, when was the earliest they had them in operation?
I don't think any went in operation until the late or early 60s, around 62 or 63. As I watched, the reason why I'm saying this is because the simulator wasn't actually functional until around 1958, where the simulator was actually operable. The simulator that they used, or the craft that they used to build, which is a 30-meter one, was the one that crashed in Arizona, Kingman, Arizona, back in 53 or 52. I think it was 53. That's the one they used. That's the first one that they took out to the test site. It was a controlled craft, you know, that the aliens wanted to present to our government, or the USA. It landed about 15 miles from, which used to be an Army air base, which is now a defunct Army base. I forget, I can't recall the name of it. But that particular craft, there were some problems with, number one, getting it on the flatbed to take it up to Area 51. They couldn't get it across the dam because of the road. It had to be barged across the, the Colorado River at the time, and then taken up to where people go now, up 93, out to Area 51, which was just being really constructed at the time, and taken down those dirt roads and out to that particular area of the test site. There were 4 aliens aboard that thing, and those aliens went to Los Alamos for basically, it was a sort of a test thing. They set up the Los Alamos with a particular area for those guys, and they put certain people in there with them, people that were astrophysicists, just general scientists, to ask them questions. The way the story was told to me was there was only one of them that would talk to any of these scientists that they put in the lab with them. Only one of the aliens. The rest wouldn't talk to anybody, or even have a conversation with them. First they thought, it was all, ESP, or, what do I want to say?
Telepathy?
Yeah, mental telepathy. But most of that is kind of a joke to me, because they actually speak, maybe not like we do, but they actually speak and can converse, But there was only one. The difference between this aircraft or this disc and other discs that they had looked at was that it was much simpler design. In the simulator, it was one big thing different. The thing that, like Lazar calls the reactor, okay, we didn't have a reactor. We had a space in a thing that looked like the reactor, but that wasn't the thing we operated the simulator with. We operated with 6 large capacitors that were charged with 1 million volts each. Say there were 6 million volts in those capacitors. They're largest capacitors ever built. These particular capacitors, they last for 30 minutes, so you could get in there and actually work the controls and do what you had to get the aircraft, or get the simulator, the disc to operate. Okay. So it wasn't that simple, because we only had 30 minutes. Okay, and the reason why it was designed like that photo I showed you was actually when it was operable, it would lift off the ball about a certain amount of there was a dimension there that we had that it actually lifted up, and it could actually turn, a certain amount of degrees left to right or whatever. But in a simulator now, you'll notice that there are no seat belts, right? And the same thing with the actual craft, no seat belts. You don't need seat belts, because when you fly one of these things upside down, there's no upside down like in a regular aircraft. You have your own gravitational field right inside. So if you're flying upside down, to you, you're right side up.
Did you ever get inside the actual craft?
I was in there for startup, sure.
How do they image? How do you look out the windows from one of these things with a controlled
Actually, we didn't look
environment?
out any windows. There weren't any windows. The only place we had any visibility at all, and it was done with cameras or video type things at that time, was in the turret section. My thing was the flight deck, and the instruments on the flight deck. I knew about the gravitational field and what it took to get people to, train them to be able to come in that thing, and operate. You would be sick or disoriented in about 2 minutes after getting in, after it was cranked up. It takes a lot of time because of the area and the smallness of it. Just to raise your hand, it becomes complicated. You have to be trained with your mind, to accept what you're going to actually feel and
So there's some
experience.
perceptual distortion.
There's a lot of distortion, yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing, just moving about, after a while, after you get used to it and all, and you do it, it's simple. You got to know where everything is, and you got to understand what's going to happen to your body. It's no different than, accepting the G-forces, when you're flying a aircraft or coming out of a dive, and that kind of thing. It's a whole new ballgame. Each engineer that had anything to do with the design was part of the startup crew. Verify all their stuff that they put in works like it's supposed to.
Did our flight crews ever take one of these discs out into space?
I don't know that. I don't really know that. I'm sure they have. I'm saying it probably took a while to train enough of the people or sufficient time. The whole big problem with this, with the disc, is that it's so exacting in its design and so forth, and it can't be used, it can't be used as like we use aircraft today with dropping bombs and having machine guns, in the wings and that kind of stuff. The design is so exacting that you can't add anything. You can't. It's got to be just right. There's a big problem in the design of where things are put. Say, where the center of the aircraft is and that type of thing. Even the fact that we raised it 3 feet so the taller guys could get in and stuff. The actual ship was extended back to its original configuration, but actually raised. We had a long period of introduction into meeting, say an EVE, an alien.
Until next time, stay curious and remember, the truth is out there, somewhere around us.